Hello friends, thank you for watching this video. I am Mohamad and today we're going to be going through a journey of how we can actually set up our Windows environment for development purposes. So we're going to be separating this video in three main sections. The first section is going to be focused on Linux. We're going to be basically enabling Linux within our Windows machine, and we're going to be basically utilizing WSL in order for us to do that. We're going to be installing a package manager, which is going to be homebrew, and install all of the different dependencies through that. Then we're going to be focusing on Windows, setting up Visual Studio Code, SQL Server, so on and so forth, and making sure everything is running there. And then lastly, we're going to be going through the development productivity items, some of the tools that I utilize on day-to-day basis there, and how we can actually see the full flow working together through the three sections. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. It will really help the channel as well. If you'd like to support me, please consider supporting me on Patreon or buying me a coffee. Now with that said, grab your cup of coffee and let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be enabling WSL on Windows. And WSL is basically Windows Subsystem for Linux, which means that we're going to have a fully-fledged Linux operating system directly running on top of our Windows machine. And in order for us to do that, we need to enable virtualization within Windows in order for us to have this functionality. So inside our start menu, we're just going to say turn on Windows feature, or turn Windows feature on and off. And I have already done this before, but if you haven't done so already, go down within the list and make sure you have virtual machine platform and Windows hypervisor platform turned on. This is gonna basically require some restarting for the machine, but that should be fine. Once that is done, just click OK, and then we're gonna go to the Windows Store. And inside the Windows Store, so once we go to the Windows Store, all we're gonna search for here is Linux. And once we search for Linux, we're gonna get Windows Subsystem for Linux. So once we click on it, we need to click on install. Yes, I want to enable this, and this will take roughly around a couple of minutes for it to actually be downloaded and installed. And this is going to be a key part, so we need to make sure that we do this first before we do anything else. So let's just wait until this is done.
A few moments later.
So once that is done, the next thing that I want is Ubuntu, but I want version 20.0.6, and I click on that, and basically again I'm going to click on install. While this is installing, we need to see how are we going to be able to interact with it. So inside our search, I'm just going to type terminal, and terminal here is going to be the updated version of CMD that you had before. So within the new Windows, we got terminal, which is going to be like an updated version of different types of terminals available for us. And we can see here that if I click on the drop down, we already have three built in, which is going to be the Windows PowerShell one, the command prompt, and the Azure Cloud Shell. Once we install Ubuntu, we can directly see it here, or any other Linux operating system will be able to see it here. So let's just wait until Ubuntu has fully installed, and then we come back here and be able to see it. So now that has been installed successfully, I'm gonna close my terminal and then open it again. And now all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on the small drop down button, and I'm gonna choose Ubuntu 20.0.4. And now the installation process for Ubuntu will take also a couple of minutes to be completed. It's asking me for my username. I'm just gonna put Mohamad, password, something simple. And now we can see everything is set up. Perfect. Now all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna update my version of Linux. So I'm just gonna put sudo apt-get update. It's gonna ask me for my password. And then I'm gonna upgrade now. So I'm gonna put again sudo apt-get upgrade. Yes. This will take a few minutes.
A few moments later.
Okay, perfect. So now that has been updated successfully and everything is upgraded, all I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna go to my web browser, and inside my web browser I'm gonna search for homebrew, and then I'm gonna go to the homebrew URL. So actually let's search for homebrew install. and I'm gonna go through the first link, and then all I'm gonna be doing here is just copy the first link that shows up, and I'm gonna come to my terminal, I'm gonna clear everything, and I'm gonna put the link there and click on enter. Now once I do that, I'm gonna click on enter, and while it's being installed, let me explain to you what is Homebrew. So in essence, Homebrew is a package manager. And what do we mean by that? It's basically, it allows us to utilize different packages that are available directly within Linux. So I don't really have to look for these packages. I can just utilize this package manager in order for me to install them on my Linux machine. So I can, for example, have Terraform, Node, Python, .NET, so on and so forth. Any types of systems or services that I need inside my Linux environment, and you can actually utilize Homebrew for me to get it. And the nice thing about Homebrew, it's basically very powerful. So if I need, for example, some kind of CLI, I can utilize Homebrew search in order for me to find it. So now if I go here to my terminal again, we can see that the installation process has been completed. So then it gives me here that I need to follow these next steps. So first of all, I'm gonna copy this line here. Oops. I'm gonna copy this line here and copy this line here and then put it here. Yes, paste and run. So that's the first thing. Actually, let's just copy it like this. Maybe something did not work. Yeah. Perfect. Now I'm gonna install the build essential, which is required as well. And this will take also a couple of minutes to complete. And let's see what else do we have here. And lastly, I want to install the GCC. So let's just wait until the build essential has finished installing. Perfect. And lastly, I'm gonna install the GCC, which is all part of the requirements.
A few moments later.
Perfect. So now that GCC has been installed successfully, I'm just gonna do a quick update on everything that I have. I'm gonna type brew upgrade, and basically it's gonna scan every single dependency that I have, check if there's an update, and currently there is nothing. Perfect. So the first item that I want to install is my AWS CLI. So inside my search, inside the Homebrew website, let me zoom in a bit. We'll be able to see that this is going to be the command. Again, I go through the search bar, I input whatever I want, and here we can see I'm going to put AWS CLI, and we can see all of these different results. I'm just going to search, and we land on here. So this is version 1. I'm just gonna type again AWS CLI, one word, and we got this one. I don't want the version 1, I want the latest version, which is this. And I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna go back to my terminal, and all I'm gonna do is just paste it here and run it. This will take also a couple of minutes. Basically every single dependency, it will take a bit of time for it to be installed.
A few moments later.
Okay, great. So now that this has been installed successfully, I'm just gonna go back to my Homebrew, and I'm gonna search for Azure CLI, and we can see this is the command for it. So I'm just gonna copy it. It's still installing. Let's give it a few minutes. Okay, now it's installing the actual CLI. Before it was installing its dependencies, and now it's installed. So now if I type AWS configure, we're gonna get the configuration process, which I'm not gonna do right now. Let me clear this. Now I want to install the Azure CLI. Again, brew install azure-cli, and this command is directly available to me from the command line interface here. And we can see now it's being installed. Okay, perfect. Next, I want to install Git. So I'm just going to search for Git. And it should be simple enough. Go back to my terminal. Oops. Let's clear things up. And then put the command here, brew install Git. This should not take a lot of time. So now that this has been installed successfully, now I want to configure it. So I'm just gonna put git. Actually, let's clear that up so we can have more space. I'm gonna put git config -- global, and it's gonna be user.name, and here I'm gonna input my username. Oops, and just gonna put Mohamad Lawand, and then I'm gonna put git config -- global user.email, and here I'm just gonna input my email address. Okay, perfect. So once I have configured Git, the next point that we need to basically understand here is, because right now I have Linux and Windows available, so there are two completely different operating systems. So once I install Git on one, it's not gonna mean that it's gonna be available on the other. So right now I have installed Git on Linux, which means that I have to reduplicate the work and reinstall Git again on Windows. And this is something that we need to be aware of when we're installing packages. If you install them on Linux, it does not mean that you can directly access them from Windows, and vice versa. So that's something just be very wary of when you're trying to do any type of configuration or installing any types of packages or referring to any folders that you create on both. So once we have done that, the next step is I want to install Terraform, and it's going to be pretty straightforward. Brew install Terraform. Perfect. And now, for example, I want to install Node. Again, I can put brew install Node, and this will install the latest version of Node.js. Great. And then I'm gonna put I want to check the version, so I can put node -- version. I should be able to see that I have the latest one. If I put npm -- version and I run, we can see I'm running on the latest one by the time of this recording. So now I want to install Python, which has already been installed, but let's check it out. So brew install Python 3, and we can see it's installed successfully. Okay, so now that I have done that, the next items that I would like to install here and basically configure after all of that, it's gonna be my ZSH. So I'm gonna type Ubuntu install ZSH, and we can see here that there's a step-by-step process. So I'm just gonna click on that process here and see how it's done. And it's gonna be as simple as install, I think, apt-get, and then install it from there. But let us double check that. Checked all. Yeah, I don't want to do this. Yep, I'm just gonna take this, copy it, go back to my terminal, run it. Git is already installed, so let's install the rest. Okay, perfect. So now that I installed ZSH and found awesome, I'm just gonna go to all my ZSH. And there's an installation button here. I'm gonna go to it, and it's gonna give me this link. I'm just gonna copy this link and run it here. And the reason that I'm doing this is just I want the terminal within Linux to match exactly the terminal that I have on my Mac, so it will make it easy for me to switch between those two environments, and I will have the same experience on both of them. So now he is asking me, do I want to continue? Yes, I want to switch from my normal terminal to my ZSH. I'm gonna click on yes. It's gonna ask me for my password, and here we can see I switched to my ZSH. Perfect. So once I've done that, the next item is I want to put ZSH power level 10,000, and then I'm gonna go to that GitHub repo, and within the GitHub repo, if you go to installation, you click on Homebrew, it will give you the steps. So I'm just gonna copy this and go to Homebrew, to my terminal, and do it there. So this basically means that I'm installing a theme on top of my ZSH, which is gonna be my new terminal type. and basically here it allows me to configure it more and basically have much more functionality outside of the box. And we're going to be seeing how we can actually configure this once the installation has been finished successfully. So we can see here the installation has finished. So all I'm going to do right now is just close my terminal and then open it again. And I'm gonna click on the small arrow button and click on Ubuntu. And now here I can directly see that I have my configuration. So it's asking me, can I see a diamond here? No, because I didn't have the font installed successfully, which is fine. And then do I see a lock? No, I don't see it. Do I see a lock? Nope. Do you see this? Yes, I can. So which style do I want? I prefer the lean style. And let's use ASCII. And I'm gonna use the first one. Show current, no I don't. Prompt high, one line. And I'm gonna use the discounted, so one. And the, let's see, lightest. Yeah, lightest, why not? Yeah, I like the compact one. And I like the concise. Yes. So I'm going to choose yes. And I'm just going to put verbose. Yes. Oops, should be Y. Perfect. So now again, I'm going to close this. And I'm going to go to the start. And I'm going to click on terminal. And from here I'm gonna go to the drop down Ubuntu, and we can see it's there. So if I type, for example, pwd, I'm able to see exactly where I am. And what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna click cd. Actually, I'm gonna create a directory inside my home folder, so make there. I'm gonna call it code. And I'm gonna navigate to code. And if I type pwd, we can see that I'm able to create a folder inside my home directory. And inside my code folder here, what can I do? I'm just gonna create a header file touch index.html. And if I type ls, we can see that I have this file available. And if I click on nano index.html, I can modify it. I'm just going to put HTML and close it down. And let's see if I can add a head, for example. Okay, and then I'm going to save this. Perfect. If I type ls, the file is still there. If I open it up, everything is still there. Okay, perfect. So now that I have done that and I have everything available for me here, all I need to do right now is go to my GitHub website and first of all, I need inside my terminal generate an SSH key, copy it, and then add it to my GitHub website. I'm gonna do this offline, and basically this will give me the full initial setup of my Linux environment. So now that has been done, let us move to the next step, which is basically installing Windows software and making sure that we are configuring it the way we want there. So let's start with Windows now. So now we want to go to our web browser, and inside my web browser I'm gonna look for winget.run. And basically what we're going to be doing right now is I'm going to utilize the Windows Package Manager. And in this case, if I want to find all of the packages, I can go to winget.run. And from there, all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to look for the specific application that I need, and I'm going to install them through that. So the first one is going to be Git. So inside the search, I'm going to put Git. Oops. Let's try again. Perfect. And here we can see that I have the copy command. So I'm just going to copy the command, go back to my PowerShell here, and just paste the command and run it. This will also take a few minutes to complete. So while this is downloading, let's look for other packages. And the other one is going to be Visual Studio Code. So as you can see here, there's a lot of different Visual Studio. There's Community, there's Enterprise, there's Professional, and then there is here the Visual Studio Code. That's exactly what I want, and I'm gonna copy the command. Let us just wait for Git to finish installing, and then we can actually execute it. Okay, perfect. Now that Git has installed successfully, let me first do the configuration for it. Similar to what we have done previously, git config -- global user.name, and this is going to be Mohamad Lawand. Then it's going to say Git is not a recognized command, so this means that I need to, let's see if it's going to give me that error. Yeah, it will give that error right now. So let's close our terminal and let's open it again. So going back to search, terminal, and let's execute the last command. Perfect. And then git config -- global user.email. So now that I had configured Git, now I'm going to install Visual Studio Code, also utilizing Winget. This will also take a couple of minutes to finish. If we go back while this is installing, let's put it here on the side. If we go back to the main Winget website, we can see here that there is 4,315 packages available for us to utilize. And if we just take a look at it, let's see if we can find something interesting. So we can see here we have stuff for Zoom. We don't really want Zoom. Scroll a bit down. I think there is one which is really interesting. Let's see if we can find it. Let's look for it. I think it's called .NET something. Let's look. So this is the SDK, so we don't really want to install the SDK. We're gonna install the SDK for .NET using Visual Studio. Not sure where it is, to be honest. Okay, so now Visual Studio has been installed successfully. That's completely fine. What I want us to do is let us open Visual Studio and let us do some configuration. Actually, let's open Visual Studio Code. So we're going to open Visual Studio Code. And we're going to go to the packages section inside Visual Studio Code. And we're going to install the Python one. Then we're going to look for C#, and we're going to install also GitLens. So these packages will allow us to basically have support for these programming languages inside Visual Studio Code, and GitLens will provide us with a lot of good capabilities when it comes to managing our branches and managing basically our source code. So let us put here C, and where's C#? C#, let's download it. Okay, so now while this is being downloaded, oh, there's one more. It's called, I think, icons. Can't remember what it was. Let's see it. Material theme. Oh, okay, material icons. That's it. That's downloaded. Okay, great. So now while this is installing, what we want to do is we want to go to our web browser again, and inside the search, I'm just going to type Visual Studio 2022 Community. And we're going to download it now. And then here I'm going to click on download. And this will take a few seconds to download the setup for the setup. So now that we have downloaded this, now it's going to install or basically download the setup for us. Continue. So now we're going to have the installer downloaded. This is finish. Okay, let's see the installed packages that we currently have. Let's remove this. Okay, now we can see I have 5 installed packages. There's a couple of more that I would like to add. Let's make this a bit bigger. Okay, Python is there. Okay, let's install Docker. Although we did not install Docker yet, but I really like the extension here. Okay, now let's go back to our installer. Okay, perfect. Now the installer has opened. What I want to do inside for Visual Studio, I want basically to download ASP.NET Web Development, Azure Development, Python, Node.js. We have already installed these through our Linux environment, so don't really have to worry about it here. Multi-platform, yes, we need that. And .NET Desktop Development, yeah, there's no harm in having that. And lastly, what I want here is a data storage and processing. Okay, perfect. So now we can see that we have a bit of a chunk of data to download. So I'm just gonna click on install and just wait for it to finish. Just to take like roughly 10 minutes to complete. So once that's completed, we're gonna resume.
Now we wait.
So finally, the installation has completed successfully. And from here, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna open Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio, I'm just gonna launch it. And we can see here it's asking me to sign in. I'm gonna skip this for now. I'm gonna choose the dark theme. Start it again. Let's close this one. Keep one running only. Again, it's gonna take a few minutes. And we can see if we just open Task Manager, we'll be able to see like the amount of CPU that is actually being utilized just to open Visual Studio. It's crazy. Okay, so now let's create a new project. I'm really fascinated by why does it take so much time just to even initialize it. Okay, let's open Task Manager. I would like to see the processes. Yeah, we can see that performance spiked. Okay, let's use here Web API. Okay, it's even lagging. Okay, now let's click on next. I'm not gonna choose this. I'm gonna choose a different repository. I'm gonna go to documents, and here I'm just gonna create a new folder called work, and inside this folder I'm gonna create a new one called code, and I'm gonna use this, and I'm just gonna call this demo.api. Let's also call the project name, solution name, let's leave it the same. And next, I'm gonna use .NET 7. Everything's gonna stay the same, and create. Yeah, it's pretty, the performance is not really that good. It's pretty bad. Okay, let's just give it a minute for it to wake up and does its things. I used to swear by Visual Studio, but now it's just got clunky and clunky. So now if I open my controller, okay, fine, let's open it up as HTTP, and let's run it. Just to make sure, all of this is just to make sure that everything is running as it should be, that we don't have any major issues, to be honest, with the installation.
A few moments later.
And if I click on try it out, are we gonna get a response? Okay, perfect. So that means that everything is running as it should be, just for comparison's sake, which is very interesting. I'm just gonna, why is this open? Okay, that's the application itself. I'm gonna close it, just so we can see how much faster if you want to just create this inside the terminal. So I'm just gonna go to documents. Actually, I'm not sure where I am. Oh, there's documents. There's work, let's go to work. And there's code, so let's go to code. And I'm just gonna create a new directory called compare, just so we can test this out. Let's go to it. I'm gonna clear, and I'm gonna see how much time it's gonna take me just to create a new .NET Web API through the command line. .NET new Web API -n, and I'm gonna call it app demo.api, anything. And if I run this, .NET is not recognized. Interesting. Although it is installed. If I put .NET -- version, it's not recognized. Okay, let's try and CMD. Actually, let's close this and then open it again. Maybe it needs a restart after Visual Studio. So terminal. .NET -- version, will it work? Okay, now it's working. So let's go to documents, and then work, code, compare, and then here I'm just gonna clean this up and put .NET new Web API -n, call it Web API demo, and see how long it's gonna take. And still a bit slow. Actually, it took a few seconds. So now if I just try to open this in Visual Studio Code, for example, yeah, it opened up. Although I have a lot of problems with Visual Studio Code, but it's fast compared to Visual Studio. Yeah, it's running as it should. Anyway, we still have to use Visual Studio every now and then, but it's unfortunate it's that slow. So now that we have made sure that Visual Studio is up and running and everything is installed, now what we're going to be doing is we need to install our SQL Server. So again, I'm going to go back to my web browser and I'm going to install SQL Server 2022 Express. And I'm just going to go to this link. And I'm gonna say I'm gonna express, and you can see it's downloading. Let's open it up. I'm gonna go with a basic installation. I accept, install, and now it's gonna download basically all of the different requirements. Then it's gonna install it for us. So let us give this maybe a couple of minutes until it's finished, and then we can resume.
A few moments later.
Okay, perfect. So now that this has completed successfully, the next item that we want to install is something called the SQL Service Management Studio. And basically SQL Server Management Studio is a way where you can actually manage our SQL Server and databases. And the nice thing about it as well is it will allow us to manage any types of database. It does not have to be our local one. So once we go here, I'm just going to click on download SQL Service Management Studio. The download is going to be a bit big, so 3 minutes. Okay, so I'd open it twice, let's close one of them. And now that has opened, we're just going to click on install. Yes. Okay, perfect. So now that SQL Server Management Studio has installed successfully. I'm gonna close this and let's open it up. So I'm just gonna go here to SQL Server Management Studio. And here we have Windows Authentication or SQL Server Authentication. I'm just gonna use Windows Authentication for now. And here I can see that connected to my local version of SQL Server Express. I'm just gonna create a new random database. I'm gonna call it demo. And click on OK. Perfect. And now what I want to do is I want to basically enable SA authentication, so SQL Server logging in. So I'm gonna go to security and click on SQL Server and Windows authentication mode, so both of them needs to be updated. I'm gonna click on OK. Perfect. And then once I did that, I'm gonna go to security, under logins, under SA, right click on it, properties. And then here, basically what I want to do is I want to specify first of all a password, so something easier than this. I'm going to remove the policies for the password as it's a local version, it doesn't really matter. Server role, that should be it. User mapping, that should be fine. Status, I'm going to enable the login grant. And then once all of that is done, I'm just going to click OK. And I'm going to close Visual Studio, SQL Server Management Studio, and then I'm gonna type here SQL, and we should get the SQL Server 2022 Configuration Manager. I'm gonna click on it, and then all I'm gonna be doing is choose SQL Server services on the left hand side, and here for SQL Server Express I'm just gonna click on Restart. And this will take roughly like 30 seconds to complete. So it will stop the service and then put it up again. So that way, basically, it will think that we have restarted the entire machine, but we haven't actually. Now it's starting it up. Okay, perfect. So now I'm gonna close this, and we're gonna open SQL Server Management Studio again. And instead of using SQL Server Management Studio, Windows Authentication, I'm gonna utilize the SQL Server's authentication, and I'm gonna put the username as A and the EC password that I have added previously. Click on connect, and now we can see that I was able to connect to it through SQL Server authentication, and this will make it easy for me whenever I'm building any types of application that needs connection to SQL Server to utilize the authentication for SQL Server Management Studio rather than the Windows authentication. Okay, perfect. So now that it's all working and done, the next step is I want to go to the Microsoft Store and click on the home. And from here, I'm just going to look for developers. And we should be able to see a list of productivity apps that are catered for developers. And there's a couple of items that I want to install from here. So first of all, I want to install DevToys, which is really cool features which is available. And I'm going to click on install. I'm going to go back while this is installing. And there's another one which is called, I think, PowerToys, which is introduced by Microsoft. Let's look, here it is. And I'm going to click on install as well. So now we can see DevToys has installed successfully. Let's open it up and see the main benefit of it. And basically the reason that I like DevToys is we have a lot of the converters that's needed. It's all built in. So I don't really need to go to any website and utilize from there. We can have all of this available locally and offline. We can even have the Chrome parser, which is really good. encoders and decoders. We have all of these different encoders and decoders, and the JWT is really powerful here, specifically if you're trying to do any type of authentication mechanism for OAuth2, all of that. You can utilize the JWT token here in order for you to investigate the token that you currently have, check all of the claims. It's a really good tool. Formatters, self-explanatory, but basically you'll be able to have good formatting available for you. Text, it will allow you to do some records, which is really interesting. And the graphics, that's something that for example color pickers, PNG conversion or compressor, so on and so forth. So I feel that's a really good tool, and if you are able to, please provide the developer with a tip, because it's a really good tool. And now the other one, which is we're just currently installing, which is still installing, which is PowerPoise. Let's give it an extra few seconds for it to complete. And basically here we can see all of the different functions that are available. Always on top, for example, which is allows us to keep a screen always on top, or any window that we needed always on top without the need to always trying to bring it up. Awake, it will keep our computer awake as long as needed. This is really beneficial if you're trying to upload a large amount of files, or for example if you're trying to run large compilations without the computer going to sleep. That's really powerful. Color picker, self-explanatory. Mouse utilities and all of that. And Fancy Zone is really good because it allows you to also separate your desktop into different zones, and it will give you much more better scalability of your screen real estate. So now that we have covered these two main things from the Windows Store, some of the other items, and this is going to be mostly targeted to productivity and basically to make sure that I'm on top of all the tasks that I need to do, we're going to go download a couple of more applications, and that's going to be right now. Okay, so the last few applications are, first of all, it's going to be the tool that I use most of the time in order for me to keep track of my project and any work that I'm trying to do, which is going to be Notion. And I really encourage you to download Notion. It's a really powerful tool. There is a free version and there's a paid version. I go with the free version at this moment. So we'll go to Mac and Windows, and we'll download the Windows one. And you can see here there's a lot of stuff that can be done with Notion, specifically with projects, some AI stuff, which is really fascinating. It's really, really good. And the other items that I like to download as well and utilize, which is Microsoft To Do, which is all already built in. So if I click on To Do, we can see it's already built in, and I already have some items there available for me. The other item, which is going to be Spotify, I think it's already installed. Let's double check. I think I installed this previously, but if it's not, it's not there. So let's download it and install it. And you can go into the store. The reason I like to have Spotify installed rather than utilizing the web player is the offline capabilities. So if I don't have any internet connection, I will be still able to listen to where I want to listen. So that's also being installed at this moment. And the last item that I really recommend that everyone to actually download and install on their machine is going to be Notepad++. Notepad++ is one of the best notepad applications ever. It is very powerful. It has a lot of different functionalities, and all in all, it's just an app that I recommend for everyone to have. We're gonna go to this. You can see it's downloading. And Notepad++, like, I highly recommend it. Okay. Next, I agree. Next, install. And basically this is gonna be the end of the setup. So here we can see the main programs that I utilize in order for to make sure Windows is up and running for development purposes. There's a couple of extra items like Android Studio, that takes a bit of time to download as well. And one extra item as well that I would like to utilize is Postgres. I don't have a need for it right now, so I'm not installing it, but that's something that I might install on my machine as well. I hope this video was helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe if you found it helpful. And if you'd like to support me, please consider supporting me on Patreon or buying me a coffee. If you have any specific program that you like, which I have not mentioned, please mention in the comments down below, and I'll make sure to recommend it in future videos. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.